Hi there. Today I'm hanging out in Manukau at Gravity with my son, and I just thought I would really quickly sit down and share some more thoughts that I have had. This is along the lines of what we owe to people in need. And I know it's quite a sensitive one because everyone is inclined to build up what we can for ourselves. And as soon as it comes to worrying about what other people need, it just becomes a touchy subject because it's so hard for the individual just to build up the resources that they themselves need to survive. Thinking about the resources that our fellow man needs immediately becomes or can present as a big burden. So if you had two coats and somebody else had, I've just got Kaylin coming over to distract me. Say hi.
Hi.
Okay, so we're talking about coats. If you had two coats and somebody else had none, so they were out in the freezing cold and you knew about their dire straits, I think we would generally agree that it would be a good thing to give your second coat to them and help them out. But is it something that you should be required to do? Obviously, if we see someone helping somebody else, we get all those warm, fuzzy feelings, and people like to say things like hashtag faith in humanity restored and share those heartfelt videos, and everyone feels good. But how many people are actually out there doing something for their fellow men? So, my question is, under the various ethical systems, what would be the response to this situation where you have two coats and somebody else only has one? Okay, so if you wanted to be a good ethical person, would you then have to, or would you be forced by your own ethical system to give up that second coat to somebody in need? Now, under utilitarianism, we're going to be looking for the maximum amount of happiness. So it really would depend on the situation. For example, if you, let's say that you really loved both of your coats, and if you had to give away, oh, Kaylin's jumping here again.
Who are you talking with?
I'm making a video, buddy. Kaylin's gone now. I'm just coming back to the example of utilitarianism. So let's say that if you gave away your coat, um, you would feel kind of happy that you're helping somebody else in need, but you also feel a little bit sad because you really liked that coat. So all up, the utility that you receive from this activity is -5. And the person who receives the coat is extremely grateful, inspired, and happy, so they receive a utility of +10. So the net amount of utility is going to be +5. It would seem that overall, according to utilitarianism, it's very likely that this ethical system is going to tell you, yes, you should give away your second coat. Though there may be circumstances where the coat owner would be so saddened by giving away their second coat that it just wouldn't work out to be worth it and that they shouldn't. But in the majority of circumstances, utilitarianism is probably going to say, yep, give away that second coat. So then what would Kantianism say? When I thought about it, it seemed a little bit weird to me. Maybe I'm not understanding it right, or maybe Kantianism isn't that helpful for this question. So if we were to assume that everyone with two coats should give away one coat to somebody in need, if that were always to be followed in all circumstances, then eventually we would have no one with two coats. And then that wouldn't be a prerequisite for owning two coats because no one would have any. So it doesn't seem that the Kantianism philosophy or ethical approach is actually that helpful in this situation. It seems a little bit indifferent towards this question. So in any case, if you were following Kantianism, it would seem like you could either give away your second coat, but you wouldn't be required to under this ethical system. If anyone else has a different understanding of it, please let me know, and then we'll have to do some more rethinking. So I've had to move around a little bit. That corner that I was sitting in got way too busy, and it probably serves me right when I'm sitting there. So the next ethical system that we are testing against this example is virtue ethics. And the virtue that corresponds to the situation is generosity. Generosity would suggest that the right thing to do would be to give away your second coat to somebody in need, someone who's freezing, desperately cold, and has no coat. Now, for every virtue, there is a corresponding vice of excess and vice of deficiency. So the vice of excess in this case would be wastefulness. And that would equate to, let's say there was somebody who didn't have a second coat, but also didn't want one or wouldn't appreciate it, then there would be no point in giving your extra coat to them. And the vice of deficiency would be miserliness. So if you're being extremely stingy when you've got 10 coats that you never wear, then according to the virtue ethical system, you would be doing the wrong thing. Okay, so the last lens that I wanted to view this problem through is basic economic theory. The unintended consequence of giving away free things to people who didn't work for them is that we inadvertently end up disincentivizing hard work and contribution. But to turn a blind eye to poverty would also seem inhumane. So what we are seeing today in modern semi-socialist Western societies is that a lot of people would rather not work because we're giving them the option to not work. So, I mean, it looks like a pretty cruisy option, but not everyone who is in those circumstances where they're asking for help is actually trying to not work. So it does tend to be a very topsy-turvy situation. You've got some people who are desperately in need, and you also have people who want to help them. And then you also have people who seem to be encouraged not to work just due to a faulty system. It seems to me that there are no easy answers, and with careful thinking, we often end up being led towards more questions. But it's a good start, so let's keep asking.